Hey guys, I hope you are staying inside and staying safe and washing your hands. I told my class that I would make these videos so that they could get a little bit of extra practice while we're out in quarantine. So all of the things that I'm going to be going over are things that we've already learned this school year. So if you're within Modesto City Schools, you've probably already seen it in 6th grade. If you're following along with SWON Math or Engage New York, right now, these are all topics that were covered at the beginning of the year. We're told right now not to teach new subjects. So basically, new standards. So basically, we're just going to be like going over standards that we've already learned, just to get a little bit of extra practice. So especially, if your mom or dad wants you guys to be working on something, practicing, and you kind of forgot how to do it because we might not have seen it in a while, this is just kind of going to be a refresher so that you remember what to do. I know we might not, I don't even know. I have no update. I have no idea. I don't know if we're doing state testing, but even if this isn't for state testing, just knowing this stuff is important for going into 7th grade. You guys know that. Just making sure that there aren't any holes in your learning. These are skills that you guys have practiced because these are 6th grade state standards. So I'm not sure what's going to go on in terms of, are they going to go over it next year? But just in case, I think that we should just get the extra practice while we can on this break, especially if you're bored and you run out of things to do. So what you'll probably want to have near you is a whiteboard, if you have one at home, and a whiteboard marker. If not, then maybe a piece of paper and a pencil. If you don't have a whiteboard marker, but you have a piece of paper and what am I trying to say? A sheet cover. Sheet covers work, and you can just slide it in. We do that in our class sometimes. You guys know what I'm talking about. Or basically anything that you can write with on a whiteboard marker if you have a whiteboard marker. If not, just use pencil, use chalk, use markers, use whatever you can find. It's whatever. Just not on your walls. Just ask your mom what you can write on. So everything that I'm going to be going over is state standard. We've already learned this the first week of school, so you guys have had plenty of practice with it, but I'm still going to write it up here just so you guys kind of know what we're going over and why we're going over it. So this is California State Standard math.content.6.ns.b3, which says that you should be able to fluently add, subtract, multiply, and divide multi-digit decimals using the standard algorithm for each operation. So we are going over the standard algorithm today. And if you guys want practice on these things, I wrote you guys down a list of how you could get to practice sheets from mathaids.com. So it's math-aids.com. And then it might have an ad pop up, but just exit out of it because it does whenever I go on it. And then once you get to the home page, there'll be the left-hand side will say decimals if you scroll down and select decimals. And then on there, they have a sheet for adding, a sheet for subtracting, multiplying, dividing. You get what I mean? And you can get the answer key as well. You have to check a little box that says answer key. So then you can have some practice and check your work afterwards. And this is also a good tool for parents if you want your kid to be have something to do over this break, but you don't really have the resource, or you don't know where to find the resources. Mathaids.com is a really good one. Same with commoncoresheets.com or mathaids.com, commoncoresheets.com. I want to say that those are both, but I'll find out and make sure and tell you guys. All right, so what we're going to start with, we're going to start going over the addition of decimals. So we're going to be finding, hello Chomper. Chomper's joining our class today. This is his first time in math class. He's really excited. We're going over adding decimals. We go over this all the time, but our most important step when we're adding decimals is to, what we would have said would be line up the decimals, but technically it's lining up your place values. So putting your hundreds on top of your hundreds, your tens on top of your tens, your ones on top of your ones, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, you guys know what I mean. So just making sure that those decimals are lined up with each other, and if one number has a decimal and the other number does not have a decimal, make sure you add a decimal and you still line that up, or you still lining up place values, because you will get the wrong answer if you don't do that. Okay, so I'm just going to go over an example problem. So let's say 20, oh dear, that's an awful marker, 29 and 73 hundredths plus 51 and 65 hundredths. So what I mean by that, my 29, my 2 is my tens place, my 9 is my ones place, right? So when I'm saying 51, I want to line my 5 up with my 2. because those are both my tens place. 51 and 65 hundredths. Sorry, I'm reading to see what my numbers are that I'm going to use. And I'm making sure that my decimals are lined up with each other. Oh, you can barely even see those decimals. Let's make those loud and proud, girl. All right. And then we are going to add starting in the far right side, just like we add with anything. Decimals make it seem scarier. They're not any scarier. As long as you know how to add, you know what to do. So when I'm going through these, if I'm going through a practice problem and I've given it to you and you want to pause the video and work it out on your own, do so. Check yourself. Check to see if you are doing it correctly. I can even say them first, pause for a second, and then write it out. That might be even better. But for right now, for this first one, I'm just going to go through how we should be solving it. So when I'm looking in the far right, which is my hundredth place, yes. 5 plus 3, we know that 5 plus 3 is 8. I don't have anything to carry. I don't know what happened. That just froze. So if I look different, I don't know what happened. But now we're going to go to the tenth place, and we're going to do 7 plus 6. 7 plus 6 is 13, so I'm going to drop that 3 before I carry that 1, right? Because that's turning into 1 and 3 tenths. When I add 7 tenths plus 6 tenths, that's technically now 1 and 3 tenths. So I'm putting that 1 in this new place. I'm putting that 1 in my 1 space. And I'm going to bring that in that decimal. And now I have 9 plus 1, which is 10, plus 1, which is 11. Again, I have to carry that, so that 1 goes in the tens place where it belongs, and that 1 stays down here. And now I have 5 plus 2 plus 1, which is 8. So my answer should be 81 and 38 hundredths. Did you do that right? Check, see what happened if you didn't. Okay? All right, I think that might be the worst whiteboard of all time. You can't really tell on this camera, but I did a terrible job of erasing that. But I'm going to give us another example of adding a number with a decimal with a number without a decimal. I don't know why that sounded so funny to me. So what I mean by that is, like, so say I have the number 47. Let's do it. Plus, let's say 23 and 15 hundredths. Right? One of those numbers has a decimal and one of those numbers does not have a decimal. So when I do this, when I give these types of problems, typically what I see is that we're just lining up to the right. So what I mean by that is that people just put 47 down here. That's not right. I'm not lining up my place values in that situation. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that I find and line up my place values. So the first thing that I would do that, like, I think that makes this easier is by looking at what number and saying how many numbers are after the decimal in the number that does have decimals. So 23 and 15 hundredths has 2 numbers after the decimal. So I want to turn this into something that has 2 numbers after the decimal. And I know that if I put a decimal after a number, so 47 decimal, and I need 2 numbers after the decimal, I can always just add zeros. That doesn't change the value of anything. And a good way to think about this is like $47, right? That's the same thing as $47.00. Same thing. So I'm allowed to do that, to change that into a number with decimals, just to make it easier when I'm setting up my problem. And then again, lining up my place values here. So 23 would go under 47. My tens line up, my ones line up, and then my decimal still lines up. My tenths and my hundredths still line up. I'm going to give you guys a second to pause this, solve it. Okay, you're on pause. Now I'm going to go through it. That's fun. You get as much wait time as you want. So I'm going to start again at the far right. 5 plus 0 is 5. 1 plus 0 is 1. I'm going to bring down my decimal. 7 plus 3 turns into 10. I always like to put my 1 up first. I think that it makes it easier to, like, think about it as writing an actual 10. So if I'm writing the number 10, I write my tens place first before I write my ones place. So I think it makes more sense to, like, write that 1 first and then your 0. If that makes it a little bit easier for you to remember which number goes down, which number goes up. And then we have 4 plus 2 plus 1, which is 7. So my answer should be 70 and 15 hundredths. Check to see if you got that right. Check to see what went wrong if you did not. You got it? You got it. Alrighty. I don't know what's going on with this whiteboard right now. It's just, it's like muted on the camera. It doesn't look that bad, but if you look at that, that looks terrible. That looks absolutely awful. My goodness. Okay, I'm going to write one horizontally. Okay, and and I want you to pause it, and I want you to set it up on your own just to get practice, just to make sure you remember how to line up your place values, okay? I'm writing here horizontally. You have a piece of paper, you have a whiteboard, you got something in front of you. I know you did because I told you to, right? You're in your pajamas too. We're both in our pajamas. We're in this together right now. There is no excuse for not having a whiteboard or piece of paper. Or even, this was what I was going to say. I have this app on my phone, which I actually use when I am trying to solve a math problem. Like say I'm at the store or something and I need to find out something, especially when I'm doing like rates or percentages or something. I mean, well, I guess not really percents, but like rates and ratios and things like that. I always use this. Let me find it. It's called Doodle Buddy. Okay, and Doodle, and then Buddy, Buddy. Let me clear my. And it's basically, oh, well, that's fun. It's basically just like a drawing app, so you can choose your color and then, but you know what I mean. So you can like work out the problems on here. So if I'm giving it to you, do like 59, you know. And essentially just use it as like a whiteboard or use it as a pen and paper. Anything that you can to try and work out the problems before I give you the solutions, just to make sure that you're on it, because it always makes sense when I'm telling it to you and I'm going through the steps, but knowing if you can do it on your own and you can do it independently, that's the real test. So I'm going to give you one horizontally and you're going to set it up vertically. Hang on. I had to think of one now. Let's do 81 and 764 thousandths plus 452. Pause that. I'll say it again, actually. Let me just say it because I don't really know how well you can read that. 81 and 764 thousandths plus 452. Pause. Hope you paused it. Hope you worked it out, or I hope you at least set it up. Did you set it up? Not pause it, set it up right now. Okay, we're setting it up then. Okay, so I'm looking here, and I'm looking which one of my numbers has more numbers after a decimal. Obviously this one, right? This is the only one with a decimal. That one doesn't even have a decimal. So I know that this number has 3 numbers after my decimal, and I want to turn this into a number that has 3 numbers after the decimal. You know, I can put a decimal at the end of a number. Any whole number can technically have a decimal at the end, right? And the only number that I can add without changing a value after a decimal, after everything else is done, is a 0. So the only way that I could turn this into something that matches this, that would make this easy for me to add, would be to add 3 zeros after the decimal. Okay? So now I have 81 and 764 thousandths still plus 452. We're just adding numbers after the decimal so that they look the same. And then I can just stack them. So 81 and 764 thousandths plus 4. I'm not even listening to my own advice. Oh my goodness. 452. But remember that my 4 is 100. We don't have any hundreds over here. So that guy's on his own. He hasn't got any friends, right? So now I have to put 4 over here, 52, because my 2 has to line up my 1. Those are 1s. My 8 has to line up with my 5 because those are my tens places. And then my decimal and my tenths, hundredths, and thousandths all have to line up with each other. But now I got this little space right here. That's fine for some people. That's fine for me. But if that throws you off, add a 0. If there's a space in somewhere that you're like, I don't know what to do with that, like what is that doing? It's just throwing me off. Just add zeros into those spaces. We know how to add with zeros. It's not going to make anything any harder for us. And then we just add like normal, starting in the far right. And we do 4 plus 1, which is, oh, actually, just kidding. Pause this. Solve this yourself. Make sure you had it set up like this. Solve it. Pause it. Go. Okay, I'm assuming you paused. I'm assuming you solved. And I'm assuming you checked your work. I know you did. You wouldn't have not checked your work. That would be absurd. So let's make sure that we have the same answers, even though I know you got it right. But like just in case, you know. 4 plus 0 is 4. 6 plus 0, 6. 7 plus 0 is 7. Bring down my decimal. 1 plus 2 is 3. 8 plus 5. When we get to these ones, I just want to be clear here. I still think it's totally okay to finger count. If you like to finger count, because sometimes when I'm going over these and I ask you guys what 8 plus 5 is, and I'm just seeing all these faces that are like, we have the skills to solve this, you guys. We have the skills. I don't expect you to know 81 plus 452 off the top of your hands, but I do expect you to use your resources to solve with your fingers if you need to. But 8 plus 5, 13. 1 plus 0 plus 4 is 5. So our answer should have been 533 and 764 thousandths. If you got that right, give yourself a pat on the back. Okay, now, if you feel like you want more practice or you need a little bit more time working on addition of decimals, go to that MathAids website that I told you about. I wrote it here so that you guys could look at it throughout and you guys could refer back to it. Go to mathaids.com, math-aids.com. Remember, click out of that ad if you need to. It might say like pick a grade. Don't do that. Don't do that. Just exit out of that when it gives you the opportunity to. And then on the left-hand side, it'll say decimals. Click decimals, and then find the addition of decimals or adding decimals practice sheet, and then get more practice there, because we're going to go on to subtracting decimals, which is very, very similar to adding decimals, okay? Okay, so now we're going to get on to subtracting decimals. Subtracting decimals is just like adding decimals, except for it's subtracting them. But we have the same most important step when we are subtracting decimals. So the most important step before you start subtracting your decimals is to make sure you line up your place values, or formerly known as line up your decimals, okay? So if I'm giving you a number that's like, let me see, 98, it's just getting worse and worse. You can see that that's bad now. Like there's no hiding that. Okay, 98 and 98 hundredths minus 36 and 31 hundredths. 36 and 31 hundredths. Oh, I did such a bad job of writing my decimals. Can you see those decimals now? Is that better? That's really hard to read, but I'm going to say it again so that you know. 98 and 98 hundredths minus 36 and 31 hundredths. Okay, that's our problem. If you want to set that up, go for it. Pause me, set that up on your paper, on your whiteboard, on your chalk, on your cement outside. I don't care. Just set it up. Go. Okay, welcome back. All right, so we have 98 and 98 hundredths, and we have 36 and 31 hundredths, and I've already told you that like 4 times, so I'm really sorry for repeating this. But I'm starting out easy, okay, because there's the same numbers after the decimal in both problems, which makes it very easy to line up our place values, because even if you didn't know to line up your place values, you'd still just accidentally do this correctly if you just stacked them on top of each other. But it's still important to be thinking about this in terms of lining up your place values, because of those times where it's not going to work out like that. So we have 98 hundredths, like I've said that before. Subtract 36 and 31 hundredths. Is that hard to read? I'm really sorry if it is. I'll get better and do better. I'm sorry. I know people like Adrian and Aiden, I know you're cringing if you're watching this. I don't know how to edit a video. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. So this is as good as it's gonna get right now. But same thing with addition. We're gonna start on the far right. So in this situation, we're gonna be starting with our hundredths place. All right, so I have 8 minus 1. 8 minus 1 is easy, okay, because the bigger number is on top. So when the bigger number is on top, we just do 8 minus 1, right? It's 7. Now we have 9. Oh, they gave us all easy numbers. Just kidding. This is an easier example. Now we have 9 minus 3, which is 6. I'm bringing down that decimal. Now I have 8 minus 6, which is 2. And I have 9 minus 3, which is 6. So if you did this, if you paused it and you worked it out ahead of me, you should have gotten 62 and 67 hundredths. All right, let's go on to another one. Okay, so my next one, I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult. I'm going to start with one level of difficulty higher, okay? So this one's going to require us to borrow. So I'm going to do 83. Got better. And 42 hundredths minus 43. Oh dear, I went too far. And 64 hundredths. I only did this though because I'm trying to get out of this blob. Okay, I just gonna have to sit against the wall. All right, so if I'm lining this up vertically, yes, that's right. Pause it, do it yourself. Go, pause. All right, welcome back. I'm sure you did it. I'm sure you did it correctly too. So 84, what am I getting this number? 83 and 42 hundredths minus 43 and 64 hundredths. Okay, same as always, we start on the far right when we're adding or subtracting, right? My decimals happen to line up well with each other. I didn't have to add any zeros. My place values just naturally lined up with each other. But I'm still gonna start with my far right. So I have 2 minus 4, right? If I have 2 and I gotta give you 4, I can't do that. No, right? I'm going to have to borrow that from somebody else. If I have $2, I owe that guy over there $4. That's not how that works. I have to borrow it, right? So I'm going to borrow from my tenths place. I have plenty of tenths. I don't have enough hundredths right now. So I'm going to borrow, and I'm going to turn this 4 into a 3. So now I have 3 tenths, and I have 12 hundredths is kind of what that looks like. So 12 minus 4, now I can do that, right? Now I have a bigger number on top. 12 minus 4 is 8. 3 minus 6. Okay, now I'm like, what? I thought I had plenty of tenths. I don't. So now I have to borrow it from my ones spot. So my 1, that's a 3. If I'm going to borrow a 3, it's going to turn into, I'm going to borrow from that 3, it's going to turn into a 2. And now I'm bringing that over here, that 1 that I just borrowed. I only took 1 from that guy, right? 3 to 2. Now I'm going to bring that 1 over here. So now I have 13 tenths. 13 tenths minus 6 tenths is 7 tenths. And I'm going to bring down my decimal. Now I have 2 minus 3. Again, I can't do that, okay? I have 2 on top. That's a smaller number. I can't do that. I got to borrow from somebody else now. So now I have to go all the way to the 10th spot. All right, I have 8. I'm going to borrow from that guy, and that's going to turn into a 7. And now instead of having 2 ones, I'm going to have 12 ones. So 12 minus 3 is 9. And 7 minus 4, which is the only thing left, now we're in our tens place, is 3. So my answer should be 39 and 78 hundredths. Okay? That was a little bit of a trickier one because it required a lot of borrowing. Also, please forgive me if I make mistakes on this. There's no kids in front of me to correct me and tell me that I'm wrong. So I apologize if I'm wrong. Okay, let's do one more that's a little bit trickier. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to do a whole number and a decimal. I don't know which one I'm going to do on top and which one I'm going to do on bottom. It'll come to me eventually. But the reason that I'm doing this is so that we get practice lining up numbers without the same number of place values. So like the same number of numbers. That's a lot of words. The same after a decimal, right? So a whole number and something with a decimal. Can't just throw them on there and hope that it works like you can if there's the same numbers after the decimal. It's a lot of words, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right? So let's say I'm going to go real tricky. I'm going to make the whole number go first. Okay, so let's say I have 547 minus 38 and 12 tenths. Okay, I know that this is a bigger number. I wrote it first. It's going to come first in my problem, but here's the thing. This number has more numbers after its decimal. And when you have more numbers after your decimal, I have to do something to this number to make it match. I got to do something to make this easier. I have to line up my place values, right? But before I do that, it might be even easier if I add that decimal, which I know that I'm allowed to add at the end of a whole number, right? Because 547, I'm allowed to add that decimal at the end. And I have 2 numbers after my decimal, which means I have to add 2 numbers which do not change the value. The only number that doesn't change the value is a 0. So the only number I can add at the end is a 0, and that's what I'm going to do. Because remember, like I already said, $547 is the same thing as $547.00, right? They might be written either way at a store. Okay, so now I'm going to subtract 38 and 12 tenths. Here's the thing that could also trick you, right? This is a tenths place. That 3 is a 10. Yeah? This is my tens place here. Did I say tenths? I hope I didn't. I meant tens if I didn't say that. Those 2 things have to be lined up with each other. My 3 has to go under my 4 because my tens have got to stick together. So my 3 is going to go there. My 8 is my ones place, so that's going to go there. And then the rest lines up. That is getting funky with the amount of erasing that I've done, but it's okay. Okay, so now I told you this is going to be a hard one, and it is. But so now I have 0 minus 2, and I swear, if you wrote 2, go look in the mirror and give yourself a dirty look right now. If you wrote 2, you know my feelings on that in my class. No, that's not allowed. You can't do 0 minus 2. That's not right. If I have $0, I can't lend you $2. I don't got anything to lend, right? So I have to borrow it from someone else. Well, here's my friend in the tenths place. He doesn't have any money either. We're not going to him, right? We're going to go all the way to the ones place. My ones place, there's 7 ones, right? I can borrow. So now I have 7, and I'm going to take 1 away. So now I have 6, and I'm going to turn that into a 10 in the tenths place. So now I have 10 tenths. Is that helping me? No. I'm not in the tenths place right now. I'm in the hundredths place. So I still have to borrow. If I had 10 and I just took 1 away, that turns into a 9. And now this turns into a 10. So in the hundredths place now, I have 10. So 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 1 is 8. I'm going to bring down that decimal. Those 8s do not even look like they're sisters or cousins. I don't know what happened there. 6 minus 8. Okay, I can't do it again. I did this in a way. I can't. I gotta borrow some more. So now I have to go over to my tens place. I feel like I might have messed up somewhere in there, but in the way I'm explaining it. But I hope you guys understand what I mean. So I have to borrow from my tens place. So now this 4, which is technically 40, right? Becomes 30. And now this becomes 16 ones. So instead of having 40 tens, or 4 tens, and 6 ones, I have 3 tens and 16 ones. It's the same amount, right? Either way, it's going to be the same number. So now 16 minus 8 is 8. 3 minus 3 is 0. That 5, if I would have plugged in with a 0, I would have gotten the same answer, but 5 minus 0 is 5. So my answer should be 508 and 88 hundredths. I was about to say 88 cents, but we're not talking about money here. Okay, so 508 and 88 cents. Oh my gosh, I just did it. 508 and 88 hundredths should be my answer here. I didn't tell you to pause, I don't think, and solve it, so I'm sorry. But if you want more practice with subtracting, I'm going to tell you this again. Go to mathaids.com, math/aids.com, go to decimals, and there's going to be a whole sheet for subtraction too. So I'm going to probably turn multiplication and division into a different video because I think it's going to be a little overwhelming to do all 4 in like one session. But again, if you want practice, go to MathAids, print them out, and make sure you get that answer sheet so that my neighbor's going a little wild right now. I'm getting a little crazy out there. Make sure you get that answer sheet so that you can correct your answers, or even like fill it out and then give it to your mom, your brother, your dad, your grandma. I don't care. Have somebody check it. Make sure that you're not solving all these problems in the wrong way because that'll get you. Okay, so make sure that if you're practicing and you're getting the right answers. That's why we have those math answers. That's why we have the answer sheet for you. All right. I'll see you soon. Bye.